Okay, today we are going to learn how to do the duplicate stitch. So I have this little stocking here. I have a length of my contrast yarn, and you'll see it's 2 strands of the yarn because this was knit with 2 strands held together. So we're going to use a contrast yarn that is also held together because you want your duplicate stitches to be the same or the same thickness or even thicker than your main yarn, just so that that pattern really pops. So you'll see we have these little stitch markers here at these 4 corners. I've blocked off the 4 corners of the chart that I'm going to be using. There is 15 stitches in between here, 15 rows here. And that is because I'm using a 15 stitch chart. We're going to be making a little letter A. So to start, I'm going to start at the bottom left corner. And in my chart, I have my first stitch is going to be 2 stitches up and 2 stitches in. So this is the first stitch that I want to create a duplicate of, which means that I actually have to go in the stitch just below it. I'm going to go in right here, pull my yarn all the way through, like so. And then here, this is the stitch that I want to duplicate. So I am going to go under both of the legs of the stitch directly above it. So if you can see that there, I'm going right above that stitch that I want to duplicate. And I'm going to pull my yarn all the way through. There we go. So you can see we have duplicated half of that stitch. And don't worry about this tail here. We're gonna weave that back in at the end. I just like to keep it on the outside so that it is, so that I don't catch it on the back of the work. Okay, and so now to duplicate the second half of the stitch, we are going to go back in right here, back where that yarn, see that yarn is coming out, that contrast yarn is coming out right here. I'm gonna go right back in that same place. And because according to my chart, I'm also gonna wanna duplicate the stitch right next to that first stitch that I duplicated, I'm gonna bring my needle back out directly underneath that next stitch that I wanna duplicate. So we're gonna come, oops. Make sure you don't tangle all your yarn. There we go, and we've duplicated our first stitch. And then we are just going to repeat that for every stitch according to our chart. So my chart says we're going to duplicate the next stitch right next to that one. So we've come up just below that stitch. We're gonna grab both legs, go behind both legs of the stitch just above it, pull through, and then come back down in where our yarn came out. And again, because our chart says we are still going to duplicate that one right next to it, we're doing 4 stitches in a row right next to each other. So we're going to come back out 1 stitch over, you can see we have 2 lovely little duplicated stitches there. And we're just going to continue across. one more in this row. Okay, and now, according to my chart, I'm going to want to duplicate this stitch above our second stitch. So we are going to bring our needle out in the middle of that stitch we already duplicated, because we're going to then go into the stitch right above it. So we're going to finish that last one of this row and come out right here so that we can duplicate this stitch here in the second row. The same thing, we're just going to go behind the two legs of the stitch above it, pull through, go back in where we first came out, and we're going to go to the stitch right next to it, duplicate that one too. Oops. Again, careful not to tangle. Can get a little messy if you're using two strands of yarn, so if this is your first time doing this technique, I recommend using a single strand of something thicker. Now, if your duplicate stitch is a little tight from all that pulling, you can just take your needle and sort of lift it back out. There you go. It's nice and neat now. Go into the stitch next to it. Back down. We're going to come up again through that duplicate stitch we already made. And we're just going to continue like that, following our chart. We're going to go up. We're making a little A here, so we're going to go up and then down and then do this little bit here too. And if you are working with something that is double layered, like a stocking, you want to make sure that you're not catching the back of the stocking. So make sure, it might help to put a piece of cardboard or something in here, just so you're not sewing through the stocking. You just want to sew on this level. So I'm going to do the rest of my stitches, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like. And here is our finished duplicate stitch stocking. This is my Yuletide pint-size stocking pattern. You can get this as part of my Yuletide collection. You can also use this duplicate stitch tutorial on the mini raglan sweater pattern in that collection. Or you can use this tutorial on really anything you like, anything that you want to add a little bit of color work to, but that you don't want to actually work intarsia on. There you go.